Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tukenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Welcome in Shabbat Shalom. This week our Torah portion continues on with the story of Abraham. And this week our Torah portion is Vayera, which is for he appeared. As we know, it is Adonai who appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre, as we shall also know him as Melchizedek. Now, why shall this be the case? Well, because as we showed in the last parashah that Melchizedek was Yeshua, as Abraham recognized him in the two messengers that were with him. See, Abraham remembered seeing and being with him after recapturing Lot and the others, when he first met Melchizedek, and now he remembers him and ran from the tent door to meet him and prostrated himself on the ground. Now remember, if it was an angel would not have allowed him to bow. But since he was in the presence of the Ben, the Adonai, he was allowed to bow to him. And I ask you now, what was the first thing he said? Next. Yes. Exactly, my Lord Adonai. Because you see, all sheep know their master. And now, what was it that followed that Abraham offered? To send for some water so that you can wash your feet. But now, where did or do we hear this as well? Yes. In Yochanan chapter 13, 1 through 17, when Yeshua would likewise later on wash his Talmudim's feet. Not only that, but what else did Abraham offer to Yeshua in his messengers? Yes, that is right, bread, which Yeshua states later on as being his flesh. And what did Melchizedek bring to Abraham in the valley in Bereshit chapter 13, 17 through 19? Yes, bread and wine, which is also for his blood. So now you can start seeing who Abraham is here actually meeting with. So now, after Abraham had told his wife Sarai to prepare the feast for Yeshua and his messengers, and they feasted, well, what followed would be an amazing rehappening of Yeshua questioning his servants, because in earlier on it was Adonai questioning Adam when he asked him where he was, and Adam responded with, I hid myself from your presence, for as I am naked, telling the truth. Right there. And now here once again, after Yeshua tells Abraham that around this time next year, that Sarah, your wife, will have a son or a Ben. And what did Sarah do next after overhearing it? Well, yes, she laughed at it, thinking that because she was so old in age that it was impossible, and clearly forgetting that it was spoken by Adonai. And it would surely come to pass. So now following, just as with Adam prior, so too did Yeshua question Sarah to Abraham on why she had laughed when she heard Yeshua's spoken words of her. So to life, Ben, but unlike Adam who told the truth, what did Sarah do next? Well, she lied in the presence of the Adonai and denied it, saying, I didn't either laugh, when she clearly just did. So now, speaking of lies and deception, what would follow would be even more wrongful acts in the presence of Adonai, as the two messengers of Yahweh were set on their way toward Sodom. Following Yeshua, revealed to Abraham what was soon to take place for those who did not keep the way of the Adonai by doing righteousness and justice and living by his Torah. So he informed Abraham that the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great and their sin is very grave. Then he came down to see if it was truly so. Now he came down as a righteous judge would do by checking and surveying over all of the evidence for himself, as we truly have a fair and a righteous judge. But now there was a tzedek righteous man that interceded for them on their account. That was soon to be cashed in. It was Abraham, and just as a patient advocate, he had gotten the total count of righteous men to be found and to be down to just 10. But now, where else do we hear of the 10? Well, with the children of Israel and the 10 plagues to Pharaoh and the Egyptians. For Pharaoh being hard-hearted, but now too so were the people of Sodom, minus Lot and his family. You see, in Sodom, they only cared about themselves and did not show hospitality and good keep for their fellow man, such as Abraham did when he showed this beautiful kindness act, Chesed act to Yeshua and the 2 messengers that were with him. See, they only cared about themselves in Sodom and would rape and kill off anyone that they wished to. So you see, Yahweh had to destroy it, because if not, they would have eventually tried to kill everyone till there was no one left. So as the angels of Adonai arrive at Sodom in the evening and find Lot sitting at the gate of Sodom, Lot, possibly remembering what those in the presence of Adonai look like are traits of those who were in the Adonai's presence, Lot met them and said, "What first?" "Yes, hear now, my lords," following with, "Please come over to your servant's house." But being that they were on a Kadosh mission journey, they declined and stated that they would stay in the square, the main point of the city, to truly see how the city revolves. But they made their way eventually down to Lot's home. So now, they didn't even need to seek out the troubled ways of the city, because before long after eating, but before hitting the head or hitting the sack, the door was knocking. And now who was it? Well, it was the men of the city, young and old, unrighteously everyone from the neighborhood of Sodom, calling out to Lot. So I guess we can easily say that there were not even 10 righteous men in the city, as Yeshua said that he would pardon the judgment for. Now what had followed next is that the evil men with the evil inclination inside of them wanted Lot to bring out his 2 male guests so that they could in fact have fornications and have their ways with them. But Lot begged them not to do such a wicked thing and to try to remove the sin of homosexuality. Lot next offered his 2 daughters, who in fact were virgins. But they were clearly not interested. So following after, Lot got the door closed, and the man threatened to do worse to him than to his 2 guests. Well, now judgment was about to start taking place. And the angel struck the 2 men at the door with blindness, for so they could not find the door and break it down. And following, the angels told Lot to bring all who were with his family and to leave, because they were about to destroy it. But just as most family who aren't believers and with enough faith, emunah, his sons-in-law did not believe it. Now, as for when Lot and his wife and 2 daughters left and fled, they were told not to look back behind them, but to escape to the hills. But you see, eventually Lot's wife did look back, as she would not give up her old way. She could not leave behind what she had. She could not leave the ways of the world. And that is also what we were told at the end that we must do. We must forget and leave the ways of the world, as we are to truly follow and accept Yeshua. And we can't do so if we already have a master, which is the world. We must have one master and make that the right one, the righteous one, Yeshua, our Messiah. And by doing so, looking back, his wife had become a pillar of salt. Now, as Adonai remembered Abraham and helped send Lot away from all of the destruction as he overthrew Sodom. You know, I've heard it said that it started with the lightning that struck Sodom. See, what had happened was the lightning had struck and it infused the flames from the magma chambers that were under Sodom, and that is also what had the volcanic eruption, or the volcano erupt, which also brought hell and brimstone down. So you see, Yahweh is a beautiful, loving Abba, but he's also beautiful in the way he does his things, because he doesn't have to do things as the way we would expect him to do it. You see, the way the world revolves is the way that, well, works for how he will have his judgments to come to us. So, it could be a volcano eruption, it could be a tsunami, it could be massive earthquakes, sinkholes, it could be fires, it could be devastation such as these, or it can be famine or pestilence. But just because we have preconceived notions of how certain things should be, just as how they had it when Yeshua was supposed to be there, they thought he was going to be a king to restore them. He was going to be rich. He was going to be powerful. But, oh yes, he was. But in the spiritual aspect at that time. But when he comes back, he's coming back with his full spiritual and physical. So you see, never judge a book by its cover. So now, as we move back to Abraham in Bereshit 20, we see the holiness of Abraham's surroundings as he travels toward Negev and lived between, get this now, Kadesh, which is Hebrew for holy, and Shur, which is Hebrew for a wall and apart. So to say a holy set apart place, just like Yahweh's two people. His true people are to be set apart people, holy or kadosh to Yahweh. But now, as when Abraham was living in Gerar, as an alien, he once again told Ahab truth and told King Avimelech that Sarah, this time not as Sarai to Pharaoh, that she is his sister. Now, once again, he too took her. But just as before, Adonai had to intercede on Abraham's behalf. But this time he visited Avimelech in a dream and said, "You are about to die because of the woman that you have taken, since she is someone's wife." But Avimelech stated that he was innocent, as both Abraham and Sarah stated that they were sister and brother only. And Yahweh kept him from touching Sarah and said he was innocent, and Yahweh kept him innocent by not having him touch Sarah. He also informed him to return her, and Abraham would then bless him as a prophet, which is the first time we hear of it being spoken of a man being a prophet for Yahweh or Yeshua. And once again, Avimelech questioned Abraham on why he brought this being barren plague on him and his people, along with why he lied. After his explaining, Abraham then prayed to Yahweh to heal Avimelech and his people from being barren or infertile, just as when Yeshua had the bread and the fish and he prayed for the blessing up to the Abba. Now you see, when you lie as a person of Yahweh or Yeshua, you are reflecting a bad image of your true Creator and your true Yahweh. And it can deter people that you would be accountable for. So always remember to be righteous. Now, at this point, so too did Yahweh also remember Sarah, as he had said he would. Because, see, understand, first he took the plague of being barren from, Avimelech, from others, because Abraham prayed for them to have the curse taken away. Now, he prayed, he put others before him. And then later on, you see second after that, because, Yahweh remembered Abraham because of the righteous things he did, blessing others. Now he, in fact, was blessed by Sarah being blessed with having the child. And Sarah then conceived Yitzhak. And as keeping the covenant with Yahweh, Abraham circumcised his ben Yitzhak when he was 8 days old. And now Abraham was 100 years old. And as Yitzhak grew and was weaned, his Abba gave a great banquet. But just then Sarah would see Ishmael mocking Yitzhak. Now I've also heard it said by the sages that, when he was mocking him, it was actually he was calling Yitzhak out as to say that, look, you are only 8 days old. You have no choice on if you want to accept the ways of Yahweh. But I, when I was circumcised, was of age, and I chose for myself to be circumcised. And in return, Yitzhak turned to him and said, you chose this, but I will show you how righteous and loyal to him, the Abba that I am, and I will offer myself to be sacrificed, as later on Abraham was to sacrifice him, and he binded him up, and Yitzhak offered himself at that point to be binded up and to be offered as a sacrifice to Yahweh. So do you see it? But like we were saying, as Sarah, his mother, had seen that Ishmael was mocking him, so what was it next that Sarah did? She told her husband to rid of Hagar, the Eved girl, and her son Ishmael, because, I assume that Sarah must have thought that it was his mother, Ishmael, mother Hagar, who put him up to this and being this way and being harshful towards Yitzhak. And as Abraham was disturbed about the situation, Yahweh said he would take care of Ishmael and Hagar, but to also do as his wife says to do, because it would be Yitzhak's descendants that would be counted. And this showed that Sarah was righteous and possibly a prophet too, because now you see Yahweh telling Abraham what to do. And that is what his wife, who must have been a prophet as well at the time, told him to do. So listening to Yahweh, he did as his wife requested. And the next morning he sent them away with a short supply of rations. But now remember that Yahweh said he would protect them. And as their water diminished away in the desert, and Hagar set her son under a bush to die and turned from him as she could not bear to watch his demise, Yahweh sent an angel to give her guidance, to open her eyes, to see a filled well of water as a sign that Yahweh would always keep her and her son protected. So now, we move through the journey to Bereshit 22. It's finally the time for the big test of Abraham. And Yahweh tells Abraham to take your ben, your only son, who you, Ahava, love, Yitzhak, and go to the land of Moriah, and there you are to offer him as a burnt offering on a mountain that I will point out to you. Now remember, at this time, when he had Ishmael, he was known as Avram, but now he's noticed and he is by the name of Abraham. And once he was also by the name of Abraham, that is when he had Yitzhak. So Abraham is told that take his one and only son, his one and only ben, and this only son he has at this time as Abraham is who? Yitzhak. Yes, and to offer him as a burnt offering on a mountain that Yahweh, Yeshua says, I will point out to you. Now, so following now, a loyal and an obedient, just as we are supposed to be, an obedient of that servant, Abraham did as Adonai requested, as is a great lesson for us all, to read Yahweh's word his Torah and his Brit Kadash, and to live as he says to live, and to do as he asks and requests us to do, as it is a benefit for us. And as they came to the place, Yahweh told him to build the altar there, and laid his son on the altar on the wood. And just as he proved worthy and obedient, and raised his arm to strike and kill his Ben, well, the angel of Adonai called to him out of Shamayim and said, do not lay your hand on the boy. Do nothing to him. For now I know that you are a man who fears me. And in turn, Yahweh provided the offering, who we know later on would be his one and only Ben Yeshua. So it was as when Abraham was about to strike and kill Yitzhak that Yahweh paused. He hit the pause button. And Yahweh paused him right there and removed Yitzhak, and in turn placed his one and only Ben Yeshua in his place. Because you shall always remember that Yahweh will and has and will continue to provide. So Yitzhak carried the wood in which was to have him be burned on, and later on, what did Yeshua do likewise? Get this, he carried the wooden stake that he was to be crucified on. Now, just as in our Torah portion, we see now as we move into our half-Torah portion that Yahweh will provide. And as we see with the wife of one of the sons of the prophets, that as she sought help and word from Adonai, as she sought out Elisha, she appeared to have nothing to offer her creditors. But now remember, if she had not had Yahweh on her side, it may have been this way. But the fact of the matter is that she actually did have Yahweh on her side. But she explained about the jars of oil, that was the only thing that she had. But as we can put this forward into the being of spiritual oil by obedience to Yahweh and to his words. So we now see that she was not without storing up of spiritual oil. And notice the next thing that happened. Well, Elisha told her to borrow empty vessels from her neighbors now. And notice that I did not say vessels filled with oil. Now why? Why empty vessels? Well, it is because she had so much faith stored up with Yahweh that she in fact had so much spiritual oil, but not enough vessels to store it up in. That since she loved Yahweh, well, he loved her so much that he manifested her spiritual oil into the physical so much that she could fill all those empty vessels up, and Yahweh provided for her, just as with Abraham. So now I ask you today, how many spiritual rewards are you storing up, or have you stored up? And remember that Yahweh said that those who bless his people will be blessed. Well, was this not the case with the Shunammite woman who prepared a room for Elisha? In return, Yahweh blessed her with a ben, with a beautiful blessing from a loving Abba. And as the ben that she received later on died, well, the Shunammite woman, with faith in the works of Yahweh, sought him through Elisha. And well, because of her faith, her ben had been restored to her. So I ask you now, are you learning to trust completely in Yahweh and Yeshua? Now, speaking of Yeshua, and with our gospel portion, well, speaking of faith, we see that upon the time of purification, according to the law of Moshe, that there was clearly a Zedek man whom the Ruach HaKodesh truly rested upon, and his faith was very strong in Yahweh. Now, he wholeheartedly believed the words of Yahweh that were revealed to him by the Ruach HaKodesh, that he would not see death before he had seen the Adonai, Yeshua's faith. Now, this is a good thing for us believers with emunah faith to act on, as Yeshua told us all that he would receive us and raise us all up again to be with him forever. Olam. And with that full faith in Yahweh, will Simeon waited patiently, and now the wait was over, and he had held baby Yeshua and blessed him and said, Adonai, now you are letting your avad depart in shalom according to your word. For my eyes have seen salvation, which is Yeshua, that you have prepared in the presence of all peoples, a light for revelation to the Gentiles, and for the glory to your people, Yisrael. And as we close on this, we will finally be blessed with the spoken words of the Aaronic blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom. This has been a weekly Messianic Torah portion from Following Yeshua Ministries. For more information or help, please visit followYeshuaNow.com. Shabbat Shalom.